Hello, I want to quickly talk to you about how we go about responding to literature, how we go about doing a deep, meaningful read of the selections that we have, um, and how we should think about writing about literature. I do have a lot of, and you'll notice on our modules on the daily agendas, you will always have an area around craft where it's talking about how people go about writing poetry, writing drama, writing fiction, because it is a process and it is a craft. And so when you are reading, when you are responding to literature, and when you are writing about literature, you should always be thinking about the elements of fiction and the elements of poetry. And so you're considering point of view. Whose perspective is the story told from? How does that make a difference in the story? Why is this important? Why do you think this was the choice? You're thinking about the narrative structure. How was the story put together? Are you thinking about the poetic structure? What form does this poem take, and how does that impact flow and meaning? You're thinking about the dramatic structure. If you're talking about one of the plays, you're understanding what the narrative structure, the poetic structure, and the dramatic structure are meant to do, and why it's told in this specific way or in this specific genre. You're thinking about the characters in the stories, whether that be drama or fiction. What's their primary motivation? What force or forces are holding them back from whatever their motivation is? How are the authors characterizing these characters, and how does that help you to understand them, not just externally but internally? Um, if you're talking about poetry, then remember that there is often a speaker in the poem. And that speaker in the poem isn't always the author. Just like when we are writing a short story, if one of my characters is a serial killer, it doesn't mean that I, as the author, is a serial killer, right? It's fiction. It's a character that I'm crafting. And so the same lies true with poetry, that often there's a speaker in the poem that's talking about an experience, and that experience could relate to some experiences that the author has had, but we should never, in general, assume that the speaker in the poem is the same as the author of the poem, okay? Because poets use some of the same literary devices that fiction and drama writers or playwrights use in order to tell the story or get across whatever messaging they're trying to get across. You should also think about setting, right? Where is the story set in terms of time period, in terms of physical, literal placement, in terms of culture, and how do those things impact the characters within the story? How does it help us to better understand the character because of the time period, because of the location, because of the cultural background? You're thinking about the tone and mood of the story of the poem or the drama. You're thinking about the style in which the authors are telling that particular story. You're thinking about symbolism and allegory and how that extends meaning and how you can extrapolate meaning from various symbols within the story or within the poem or within the drama. And then obviously you are always thinking about, what's the point? What's the meaning behind this poem? What is the author trying to get me to understand or get me to contemplate or to question? And so that is about ideas and themes. You're always thinking, what are the themes here? How are they relevant to the story? How are they relevant to human nature and our society? Um, what ideas might the authors want me to come away with? All of these things are up for deeper contemplation when you are seeking to better understand the story. And so the process is threefold. First, you are reading, and you are not reading as a surface interpretation. You are reading for deeper meaning. And so you are reading those selections more than once, because how can you possibly have a deeper understanding with a surface read? If it's a surface read, then the interpretation is often surface as well. And so, in order for you to respond to literature at a college level, um, in a meaningful way, then you have to go beneath the surface and help us to understand um, the deeper story or stories being told and all of the literary strategies that the author is using in order to relay that story or that message within the story. Okay, so before you start writing, you are connecting with the text, you are asking questions. What does this mean? You're looking up definitions or terms that you don't understand to enhance your meaning. You're not just ignoring them because obviously you're not getting the full understanding of the piece. You are making connections, intertextual connections between other works that may have similar themes or similar styles, and why that's being used in order to relate relay whatever message that they're trying to relay. Um, you are also taking notes on all of these selections so that when it's time for you to get to the writing portion, you're looking back to figure out what was the story about, what were my major concerns, what were my major revelations, so that you can start constructing some sort of outline for you to figure out what it is that you intend to talk about. And that should usually focus on several of the literary elements, because how can you respond to literature when you're not focused on any literary elements being used? Your essays are not just about your opinion. It's about you showing me that you are an adept reader, that you're adept at critical analysis and literary analysis. That's what I intend to see. And so you do have many readings about the process of reading, the process of writing, to aid you. You also have your past experiences. You also have student sample essays for every single essay to make sure that you receive the support that you need within the course. I also have office hours, and you also have online or in person, depending on the time of the year, whether we're in COVID or out of COVID, but we always have tutors on standby to support you in writing, crafting your essays. So utilize all of your supports. We also have librarians, and we have a fantastic library online catalog that can help anchor you and support you in understanding by these texts by reading secondary sources that are also talking about many of the poems, plays, and short stories that we will be reading in this class. Okay, enjoy.